Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another exciting podcast interview. On today's show, we're going to be talking about a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So I'm bringing in Zach Billings. He's the co-founder of Wikimotive, and we're going to talk about all things SEO, especially in the automotive industry. Zach, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
You know, let's talk about a few high-level topics, and then let's dive in.
Sure.
It seems to me that Google has been more vocal, more transparent about what constitutes good SEO and SEO rankings. I saw something recently that backlinking, which used to be, debated or not debated, or a hot thing or not a hot thing. Google's like, hey, it's more about quality content. What have you been observing about Google and, kind of decoding what it takes to have great rankings in organic search?
Yeah, decoding is a good word for it, because really what it comes down to is you look at a release that Google puts out about a new major algorithm update or a new spam update in the way
right.
And you read what they wrote, and then you just look at what's between the lines. Like, it's not that thickly veiled what they're actually looking for. And so, for instance, backlinking. More and more information has been coming out. There's articles from third parties. There's information from Google themselves that, it's not like links aren't valuable anymore, but going around chasing local backlinks and going around chasing, paid link placement, which has always been a spammy way of doing things, it doesn't have the impact that it once did. And in the industry, in the automotive industry, especially coming from vendors, we hear a lot of, well, you got to do links, you got to do, this, that, and the other that are largely dated practices. And so I think we've got a lot of vendors running around sort of doing low impact activities, and a lot of dealers really focusing on those things, when in many ways it's a lot more simple than everyone makes it out to be. Google wants great quality content. The thought exercise that I do with people is, what does Google want ultimately? They want more money, right? How do they make money? Paid search. How do you keep your market share higher than Bing or anybody else that's picking up some market share? Well, you just provide great quality results.
That's right.
It's super simple at the end of the day. I'm a Ford dealership, and I want people to show up at my website when someone Googles F-150 for sale. How do I do that? Have a bunch of F-150s for sale is one thing, but you can't always control that completely. So how do you move the needle?
That's right.
Better inform the consumer about their options and considerations around buying, leasing, servicing an F-150, and why your store is a better solution for them. And if you just make it consumer-centric, you're serving what Google is looking for. And they say it right there between the lines in all of their releases when they talk about what consumer-centric content, high-quality content is supposed to look like.
Zach, when we focus on content, and Wikimotive has always been the leader in advocating what I would say super high-quality content, that is your really differentiation in the marketplace. But I'm thinking about EVs. Mm-hmm. Dealers have a lot of EVs on their lots. There's tremendous incentives. The cost of ownership is changing, right? You have government incentives, you got rebates and discounts. I've heard of some crazy stories. I was just in North Carolina. One of the guys is picking up a Toyota hybrid. I think his lease payment is $150 a month because there was a total of $17,000 in incentives, rebates to cut down the cost of that lease. And I'm like, who knows about this? And like, not too many people, and I'm thinking that content in regards to EV seems like a real competitive edge, especially as more EV models and hybrids are coming down. Content on EV versus hybrid, cost of ownership of EV versus hybrid, current incentives in the marketplace. Am I thinking along the same lines as Wikimotive, that of all things on dealers' websites, probably EV consumer-facing content is the weakest?
The weakest, I would say, yes, but I think there's a little bit more to unpack in your question, right? So how do you attract people to your website on EV subject matter or hybrid subject matter?
Right.
Well, SEO isn't always the correct solution to that question. SEO captures people on a search that they're already performing. So someone has to know that they want an EV in the first place
Correct.
before you can capture a piece of that market share. Now, if you don't have the right quality content on your website, you're not going to be informing consumers. You're not going to attract a larger share of that market, and you're gonna lose out on opportunity for sure. So I definitely think the dealers need to be getting on top of this, whether you're a brand that's hybrid forward or EV forward, and it's largely one or the other at the moment. Have content for it and be comparing it to ICE engines and ICE alternatives. Realize, though, that if you write a blog article or a landing page that's about EVs versus ICE, hybrids versus traditional ICE, what you may end up with is a lot of informational traffic coming to your website, and potentially from all over the place.
Right. All over the country could be.
Very well, because often when Google ranks a piece of informational content, they rank it nationally. So
That's
what ends up happening is if you write the greatest page on earth about EVs versus ICE engines, just to keep it simple, and you get a ranking for it, well, probably you get a ton of traffic to that page, and you're going to look at your Google Analytics and you're going to say, look at all the traffic we're getting. And then you're going to look at your hopefully ASC event-based, well, now key events, but formerly conversions.
Right.
And scratch your head and you're going to go, why don't I have more conversion? I expected a lot more when my traffic quadrupled. And the reason is that you may have brought people in on an informational search versus
transactional searches.
Yeah, Silverado EV for sale when that comes into focus, for instance.
So I think what I'm hearing, Zach, is having a combination of informational and transactional content can serve local consumers who are coming through that buying process. I also feel that the maps play an interesting role because Google Maps knows what's on the website. And even though there's not a business category like for EV vehicles today on the Google business profile, websites with more EV content, when someone's looking for, used EV cars near me or used, Tesla near me, I've found that the Google Maps will have a little annotation that says website contains this or website includes this. Let's talk about that relationship of content on the dealer's website and how their map pack shows in search.
Yeah, well, so it's critical. The way that I describe Mappack at this point is it's largely a directory if you qualify for it. So someone types in Ford dealer, the Ford dealers all qualify based on category and their name. And if you're the closest one, you show up in A, you're the second closest, you're B. Well, EVs, there's not a category for it.
That's right.
So if you want to show up for that, you want to qualify for the search. Location may still, decide who shows up first.
For sure.
But if you want to qualify it, you want to be in there, you have to have content on your website. And this is becoming the only differentiator available to us in map pack land, because what's happened at this point is largely due to originally your leadership. Everyone's now wise to what you have to do with a GBP to have it well optimized and be able to show up. And that's become sort of the common trope that...
Yeah, kind of like table stakes, right?
Exactly. And so if you and every other dealer have the same categories that are all properly curated and decent reviews, and you've got everything set up perfectly, well, the only differentiator left to you is great website content, which Google does attach to whether you qualify for the search. So at this point, content is not only for traditional rankings and thought of as content marketing through your website, but it's also part of your local SEO play for Mappack.
So let me ask you a question in regard to the Google business profile. You can still post updates.
Mm-hmm.
Those updates can be in the form of an image and text or a video, coupons or specials. But I haven't seen any authoritative case studies or analysis that says a dealer who's constantly putting some updates on their Google business profile is getting any additional juice. So what can you tell me? Is it a fool's errand? Is it nice to have, but not really meaningful? Help me understand that, because, I think dealers have been scratching their head on that.
So I'm going to answer by first saying I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either. I
Beyond
just
a
tell
shadow of a
people,
doubt.
like, you might as well use it. And if things have changed, if you have special holiday hours, put a little notice, or, hey, a new model launch, why wouldn't you put it there? But
I think we
dealers
can.
say, well, is it going to help for searches on that? And I'm not sure if I've seen that.
I haven't seen evidence of it. So I think we can tell dealers what it isn't, which is an area that a lot of consumers are paying attention to the specific message that you put there.
Right.
When
Okay.
Google was still providing the statistics on impressions and clicks that took place on Google posts, what we were seeing is negligible clicks. And the impressions
Yeah,
were coming from people who just happened to scroll that far down the SERP and happened to see it.
that's fair.
So when Google deprecated even reporting on those metrics, that kind of tells you a lot about whether consumers were really paying attention to what's there.
Or they didn't want you to see that there was very little engagement.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly. That's, I think, the point. And when dealers are spending a lot of time internally trying to curate the posts that they put there, I think that's wasted effort. But I agree that if you have something to put there and it's not going to be an additional lift to be able to create something to put there, go ahead and do it. There's no reason not to. And all it can do is potentially help, not hurt, as long as you're not sinking a bunch of time into it and it's not a, just an errand that your marketing director or whoever is having to take care of, particularly for groups where that could multiply quite a bit. I think an hour's update, 100%, no problem doing that.
Sure.
A blog article, syndicate it there. There's an image that goes with it. There's a snippet of text. Like, I think it lives well in that space. And is there a chance that that gives a little bit of additional visibility by using Google's own ecosystem to elevate content? Perhaps. But I don't think the data exists currently, nor do I see how we can isolate that to be able to prove it out.
Good, good. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something. Let's talk about the current reality of online Google reviews. When Tim and you first started Wikimotive, and you and I were involved in educating dealers on the importance of their Google business listing and reviews and content, we were really united in our educational front. And this was at a time when dealers had 10 or 20, 50 reviews. Today, dealers have thousands of reviews. And from what I remember, the ranking in map packs was never associated with reviews. It was associated with the organic strength and content and organic rankings of the website before map pack. At least that's how it originally was. But now I'm trying to scratch my head. Dealers who have 2,000 reviews or 3,000 or 3,000 to 4,000. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on, hey, once you got thousands of reviews, is there anything written that talks about the stalling of reviews? Like, hey, a dealer says, hey, I'm at 3,000 reviews. We do good business. I don't need to be paying for a review management system at this point. I mean, how many more reviews? Does it really make a difference? What would you say to a dealer? Obviously, responding to negative reviews is table stakes again. Aside from that, should they be worried at the pace of increase of reviews if they're in the thousands range?
I would say it's great if you have quantity, particularly if your average star rating is high and you don't even need the additional reviews to try and get up a point or whatever. But recency is another component.
Okay.
Failing to have recency in your reviews or a large volume of recent reviews is definitely going to diminish the potential volume if you're trying to stack up against another listing. Ultimately, all this comes down to is you've got two dealers who both qualify for the search, and all things being equal, the closest one is going to show up. But if they're about equidistant, well, it's sort of anyone's guess, and there's no such thing as truly equidistant. Google's going to say one's better than the other.
That's right.
If both have 4.7 stars and both have 2,000 reviews, well, the one who's got a better review velocity has an edge. The one who had better content on their website that is aligned with the search qualification has an edge. And so ultimately, I would say that that's just one factor among many, and taking your foot off the gas, not wise. I would balance it with how much do you have to spend to get the reviews, for whatever the platform cost is for that.
Zach, I got in trouble once. I was invited to visit a automotive event that, I host 2 a year. You'll be once again leading the SEO education at DMSC, and a competitor, let's just say, was up there touting their SEO, and the fact was that a lot of the traffic was from out of the dealer's PMA. And you alluded to that, Brian. Be careful. If you're going to do great EV content, it may attract a lot of national, which it doesn't hurt, but it does inflate traffic. It give you a false friend signal if conversions and sales aren't going up. So let's bring that home then. When you sit down with a new client and you say, look, we're going to develop local content and we're going to be tracking metrics, what are those KPIs or metrics that you're looking for so that we can just set the table right now for dealers who are listening, who may be given a different set of metrics, or maybe say, hey, I've never invested in SEO because no one could tell me how it's going to be measured. So what are the KPIs that you believe today help justify the investment of high quality content, transactional content, and the focus on making sure all the basics for search are in place?
Great question. So traffic is not a KPI. It is a signal you'd like to measure. And for exactly the reason that you said. Once upon a time, we were, I would say, equally guilty of saying, here is traffic, and traffic is the sign of success. I think that, measuring blogs is definitely dangerous territory that at this point, we and anyone who's looking for quality and results is realized that's not the KPI. So to your question, conversions, or now key events, as Google is deciding to call them, I would say that's the ultimate measure in Google Analytics that you can use to determine, am I getting hard conversions? Hopefully this is your department-specific resulted calls using DNI. Hopefully this is form submissions, which are a lot more cut and dry. Hopefully this is retail process completions,
right.
With hopefully your vendors all following the ASC standard and you not including things.
Come on, ASC, Zach. We got to keep on pushing that.
I am still on board, 100%. And dealers have to be realistic. When you're using a vendor and you've decided you're going to stick with that vendor, or the OEM has pushed it and you've decided I'm not going to push back, everyone needs to realize that there's a point at which you may not get ASC perfection with your key events. I would like it to be the case and we should keep on pushing for it. But if it's not happening, well, we can find the next best thing and we should be measuring those. But ultimately, you need to decide what are the key events, conversions, that are truly as indicative as possible of hard conversions to scheduled services, to name, address, phone number, or name, email, phone number in my CRM. And that's the measure. However, the other mistake that I'm seeing made a lot at this point is dealers looking at Google Analytics, even well-intentioned and well-informed, dealers who are following this advice and looking at that as the KPI, and not realizing some of the other things that they may need to look at to decide, is the SEO working the way that I expected it to be? Because there are some other variables that can impact if conversions go up. So a simple, for instance, let's say you bring on an SEO vendor and you're going to measure great hard conversions, key events in analytics, and they go up. First question, did the market search volume go up? Google tells us what Google search volume is for your market. Right. So
was it all boats rise in a rising tide? That type of conversation.
Exactly the analogy I typically use. And so that can happen. If the market went up by 20% and so did your conversions, you actually just rode the market. Nothing happened. Now, let's say the market didn't go up and your conversions did. Okay, that's a good sign. But was it the SEO for your dealership and model for sale terms that caused that additional low funnel traffic impact? Or was it branded searches because you did, an intensive OTT and TV spot and you put up a billboard and you increased your brand visibility? Very, rudimentary ways of increasing that. Another thing that could change that would be you get wise and you tell your paid search provider, stop bidding on my name. Because we're not really losing any market share to competition. We don't need to be defending it in this case. Stop bidding on my name. And all of a sudden, organic reabsorbs all of those conversions from paid. Well,
Right.
did they cause it to pop? Then it wasn't your SEO that had that impact.
It was you stopped intercepting. You
Right.
stopped paying for something you would have gotten already.
Right. And so if you, the dealer, made that wise decision and guided your paid search vendor to that decision, well, your SEO vendor doesn't get the credit for the increase, right? Now, how do we delineate that? So this is the important question. And by the way, my workshop at DMSC is going to be a lot more about some of these nuanced ways of measuring this.
Great. That's important.
Can digest it. This is one of the biggest things that's missing in organic measurement in automotive, I think. So you've got your organic traffic that's turning into conversions and you've measured against the market, it's up, but how do we figure out what showed up? Why? We don't get keywords in Google Analytics. It's 99.9% not provided or not set.
Right.
So, and I vividly remember when I first started coming to boot camp back in 2010, I think was my first one. And back then we had mostly provided keywords. So you had
right.
gold mine of data and you could figure out what impact you had and how it tracked out. But now you can't. So what do? You go to Google Search Console. Dealers, please have a Google Search Console set up.
Come on.
And use it. It's a weapon. And so many dealers don't even have one. And more still, don't realize that there's this really important information. And no, you can't perfectly couple them. You can't say the person who Googled Ford dealer near me came to the website and converted. The string doesn't track through that whole way. I'd love to add the ADF2 formatting and then also
Right.
organic with the lead source, but we don't have that information. So what you can do is you can look in Google Search Console. Very simply, you can find out what keywords drove the clicks. So if you have, and users, by the way, dealers, the users metric in GA4 aligns with the clicks metric in GSC within a very small margin. So if you look in GSC and you've got 3,000 clicks, and in GA4 you've got 3,000 users, and in GSC you can see that the only thing that went up was your branded search terms, well, then now you know what your increase came from on.
Got it. Smart. Zach, this is really helpful because dealers need clarity on how they should measure, where they should invest, and why content is so important. It would be remiss of me not to really get your strategy on connecting content with paid search. To me, when someone clicks on an ad, they're expecting the landing page to match their search interest. So many of I would just say, set it and forget it. Paid search campaigns are driving people to an SRP or a VDP, regardless of the low engagement and regardless of the low conversion. It's just, hey, if they typed in Ford F-150 for sale, they're ready to just start dating and looking at cars. These are decisions that one can make. And yet we know that great landing pages can really enhance how Google Ads converts and even how much you pay per click. So just remind dealers what your philosophy is on this perfect marriage of building a paid search strategy and determining which campaigns can go to inventory and which need to go to landing pages that have really good content. What's your thought process on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer, but there's good guidance we can provide to dealers. So if it is a make model for sale search, then I would say I believe in driving the SEM campaign to a relevant SRP that serves that intent, but add some content perhaps at the bottom of the SRP and don't just do it as filler. Let's be honest, consumers are probably not scrolling to the bottom to read it. but Google will pay attention to it. And if you are doing it with your best foot forward, assuming maybe incorrectly that the consumer will read it, Google will reward that with better efficiency on your paid search.
That's
And
correct.
you'll still have the correct user experience as the F-150 for sale search lands you on a selection of F-150s.
Got it.
That having been said, there are certainly searches that are less make model specific. So
well, it could be Ford Lightning prices.
for Lightning prices, let's put them on a landing page that talks about trim levels, prices, federal tax incentives, state tax incentives, if we have
come on.
them. And then, assuming you're on a website platform that's reasonably modern and allows for this, have a selection of Lightning's, their VDP
below the text.
content.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. And what I'm trying to illustrate to the dealers that are watching, that's a custom content experience. Not just sending them to the SRP just because it's like, well, they said Ford Lightning, so I'm going to send them right to my inventory. The intent of the keywords really can determine your best guess. And then you measure, right? I mean, it's like, wow, we could do an A/B test. One day I'm going to send them to the SRP with the Lightnings, and the other day I'm going to send them to the landing page, which talks price, incentives, rebates, cost of ownership, whatever. These are some of the things that Wikimotive does to make sure that the marriage of paid search and organic search with consumer-driven intent advertising to landing pages is a perfect fit. It's never perfect, but it's worth investigating. And I think that's the intent of really what your education is going to be at DMSC, that we need to be good students and inspect the decisions that we're making, because we're not always going to get it right.
Absolutely. And I think, whether it's a dealer making their own decisions internally, or whether they're holding a vendor accountable, or they're just determining, can I trust this vendor enough to inspect them less frequently? Let's say you should always be inspecting, but
right.
In establishing trust with a new vendor that's doing paid or organic or both, you need to figure out, they really have all of this buttoned up. And so the education that I'm going to try to bring to dealers, that I keep on trying to bring to dealers, is here are the ways that you can measure this, all the way down to if you were going to execute it internally, down to what is the intention of a keyword. If it's F-150 for sale, we know exactly what the intention is. If it's Ford dealer, well, we don't know if they want to buy new, buy used, service, find parts. We're not sure.
That's
so
right.
Thinking about intention, thinking about how to measure properly, all of these things allow you to better identify, does the vendor or my internal team do it right, so that I say, I can pull my hands off the controls a little bit, get back to selling cars, or get back to marketing strategies if you're, a CMO or a marketing director, that I'm going to be executing myself, so that you don't need to sit around babysitting vendors all day. And understanding that the interplay between paid and organic, huge thing that I'm gonna make sure we focus on in the workshop. Also, how to measure the impact of the cross play, potential cannibalization that can happen. And this isn't paid versus organic. This is paid and organic is what we should.
That's right. And Zach, I just want to challenge the marketing directors, dealer principals, general managers watching this podcast. If you were generally honest with yourself, you're in an OEM program, you have 2, 3, or 4 website companies you can pick from. They're all fairly even in, the amount of content that come out of the box with these particular platforms. The majority of the content engagement on the dealer website pages are SRPs and VDPs, the service scheduler, your hours and directions, and the homepage. Which means the dealer who invests in a superior content strategy has a competitive edge, because both or all dealers in your market could use the same paid search vendor in an OEM program, could even be required or encouraged to use the same social media. So what's the difference? The difference can be the content, the engagement you can get from the paid search, the engagement you get from social media, because your website experience is richer. It answers more questions. And this is really the key for your thoughts in this area of SEO. That's why at DMSC, we're not talking about the basics. We're talking about the latest strategies to help dealers sell more car in a digital age, how to get more conversions, more opportunities to sell a car through paid media and organic earned media. And that's why Zach's taking his time to really lay it out, because some dealers are going to want to do it themselves and some dealers are going to do nothing. And then others will need help, and Wikimotive's there to help them. It's this beautiful opportunity to come out to learn. Zach, when you think of DMSC and you've been a teacher there for a number of years, Wikimotive's put on the best main stage presentations for a few years running. What gets you excited about going to this event, and why should dealers send someone from their team to sit in your workshop, specifically when they have 100 possible things they could do with their time? Why is this a great time to come to Austin and spend time with you and the other educators at DMSC?
Yeah, the landscape is continuously changing. It always has been in automotive since the internet, internet threw a wrench in the works and then we never went back, right? So there's always something new to learn about, to focus on, and DMSC and also MRC are not environments where it's just vendor pitches and rows of vendors who are, just attacking you with their wares and their giveaway tchotchkes and trying to bait you into a demo. It is an education forward conference. And the fact that people actually collaborate, share ideas, that the vendor collection that you've built that attends these, they are nearly all of them. I would say all of them, in my experience, are just trying to provide real information and have real conversations. And sure, if a dealer wants to connect with them, like that's what the vendor dealer relationship is all about.
Exactly.
Like, you hire electricians because they're experts at what they do. Like, there's nothing wrong with vendors being in the mix when they're trying to provide value for everybody.
That's right.
And the sharing of ideas and information is just top notch at DMSC. And what I hear from dealers every single time we encourage one of our dealers to come for the first time, when I interact with dealers who have shown up for the first time and are just checking out, who's there and having conversations, every single time what I hear is, boy, this is so much more intimate and close-knit, and the ideas are real, and I'm actually learning something. It's not the digital dealer NADA. Not that there's anything wrong if you're shopping for products and you want that environment, those are fine. But when you want to come and you want to learn something, it's DMSC, it's MRC, those are your options.
Yeah, we run 2 conferences a year, one in the late spring, and our fall conference is in beautiful Palm Beach, Florida at the O Resort. That's the Modern Retailing Conference. And dealers, if you haven't made a decision to attend DMSC, let me encourage you, in addition to your ticket, this year we're including 4 online courses. Okay, 4 courses that people in your dealership can take to improve their skills. One on modern lead handling, led by my brother Glenn. One on social media advertising. One on the latest on Google Ads. And I'm doing a course on first-party data management and CDPs. Why do we do it? We want our conferences to be education forward, as Zach said. We want the best ideas shared. And we know that going to a conference, you can take notes, but what if you drop some ideas? And that's why we record our workshops and we record our main stage presentations for attendees, and now 4 online courses included. So go to digitalmarketingstrategies.org, get your tickets, get your room booked before the hotel block expires, and send people who want to learn. Austin's a great city and wonderful restaurants and nightlife, but during the day, we're pretty much working from 7 to 6 every day. So get people who want to learn, who would count it a privilege to build their skills, invest in your people, because DMSC is like the Davos of automotive digital marketing, the top leaders, as Zach mentioned. the CEOs, the founders, the co-founders, the people who are leading the charge are there at DMSC, and it creates this intimate environment for learning and special deal making as well, right, Zach? I mean, Wikimotive has picked up a number of great clients just because they aligned with your vision for success, correct?
Absolutely. And two thoughts, if I may.
Sure.
First of all, our approach is conversations first and leave the pitch out of it until someone wants to have a conversation like that. So at the conference or otherwise, we do a like ranking heat map. We can get people oriented to figure out, where do I rank, where don't I rank? A lot of general managers and marketing directors don't understand when you rank well at the store, you don't necessarily rank 5 miles away. So free heat maps that are custom to each dealer who wants to reach out and get one. That's now or at the conference. And the other thing that I want to add to your point about attending DMSC, I wrote an article about this in general. Dealer principals and C-levels and general managers don't just send people there. Like, go yourself.
That's right. Learn with your folks.
Yeah, 75% of information is not retained from any presentation that happens by one day later. And by the time they're back at the dealership, they've unpacked, they've gotten in front of you. It's a week later. They only remember 10% of the details that they want to bring home that are super important. And you go, you want me to switch what strategy? You want money for what now? And like, seriously, go there and hear it from the people who are teaching this. You'll get so much more out of it.
That's such a great point. And again, that's another reason why we record those main stage and workshops, because we want people to really absorb, take it back. And when you learn together with members of your team, you're right. The retention rate, the collaboration, even decision-making is easier because maybe the executive branch and the hands-on branch of the dealership are in the same room talking about whether products or solutions or strategies are best for their dealership. I hope those of you who are listening enjoyed this conversation, really a frank conversation on what's working today in SEO, and to get excited with the opportunities that are available to your dealership when you focus on a content-first strategy. Content is still king. And more than that, it's the tools and the ecosystem that great content can support. So make sure you get out to DMSC and get registered for Zach's class. You should know that this is one of many interviews on the road to DMSC, June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in Austin, Texas. But we also have dozens of interviews with automotive leaders, tech visionaries, and dealer principals and marketing managers who are just passionate about improving, elevating automotive retail. So just search for the Brian Pash podcast and listen in to the many great stories that we're sharing to help dealers sell more cars in a digital age. Zach, look forward to seeing you in Austin. And for everyone who's listening, get your team registered for DMSC. You won't regret it. We'll have a great time learning together. Until next time, have a great day. And don't forget, DMSC, Austin, June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.